Hey, Aubrey, how are you feeling today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
Good. Aubrey, what is a skill that you have that you think isn't quite up to snuff?
Ooh, definitely piano playing. I used to be really talented, or like I practiced a lot. So I was playing the piano really well, and I just don't practice enough. So my
Mhm.
piano skills are definitely not up to snuff.
Ah, I see. Interesting. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Well,
you, Lindsay? I'd like to hear your answer. What's
I
something that
think
isn't up to snuff?
Yeah, I think just my handy woman skills around the house are just not, just not there. I don't
Same.
know how to fix things. If the pipe breaks under the sink, I don't really know what to do.
I know
I
how
could,
to call
yeah,
someone to come fix it. That's it.
yeah, I could get better at that for sure.
Well,
So,
I'm excited about this because you need higher scoring replacements for like good, bad.
mm,
The way to say that that's very band five, band six, up to snuff, which you heard us use a couple times here in the intro, and all of today's vocabulary are band nine replacements to say that something is good or bad.
yes, so important. And where on the test would this tend to come up? Using these replacements for good or bad, Aubrey,
Now, this
all
will
over the
be
test.
most useful on IELTS speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting answers about things you like, dislike, things that are good or bad, you
Mm-hmm.
need idiomatic language, right? So, not as important on writing because the idiomatic language isn't part of your score. It
Right.
is for IELTS speaking. So,
Okay.
idioms like these are vital. But
Yep.
even on IELTS writing, the general training letter, you will
Mm-hmm.
need interesting vocabulary as well. And if it's an informal letter, all of these phrases would be perfect.
Okay, good to know. So we're going to drop some really valuable vocab on our listeners today that they can take right into the IELTS exam, even if they're taking it this weekend. Right?
Yes, these are so much more useful than a lot of the words you learn that might not come up on IELTS. You will definitely need to say that something's good or bad. So instead, be ready with these to boost your vocab scores.
All right, so let's get into it then. Up to snuff. I mean, I don't know where this comes from, but it must come from somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I didn't look at
Um,
the history of these, but it just means that it's reaching the accepted standard, right? It's passable
yes.
quality. So we use
Mhm.
it positively and negatively. I
Mhm.
might say we checked out a beach while we were there, but it really wasn't up to snuff. It was overcrowded and the sand was rocky. So, I mean, it
Mhm.
didn't meet the expectation I had.
Yeah, what is that expression? Didn't pass muster, I think is another
Oh, that's
one,
a fun
right?
one. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough, right? Or another example, I was planning a party for my friend and I wanted to make sure everything was up to snuff. So that means I have high standards if I'm hosting an event, right?
Exactly, right? You wanna make sure it's perfect. Interestingly, both of these sentences were really just saying bad and good. The beach was
Mhm.
bad.
Yes.
I want the party to be good, but
Mhm.
that's band 5. These
Mhm.
sentences are band 9. Use
Mm.
these phrases instead.
Yes, I love it. Up to par would be our next one, Aubrey. What does that mean?
Yeah, very similar, right? That something is at an expected level of quality. So maybe I'd say, unfortunately, I went to my favorite restaurant yesterday and it's no longer up to par. It's
Oh
not as good as
no.
it was. It's not as good as I
Sad.
expected. So
Sad when
sad.
that happens. It changes ownership or they change the menu, they change the chef, right?
Right? All kinds of things that can make it no longer same, up to snuff or up to par.
The venue was up to par with what we were expecting. So here I'm saying it was good enough. It did
Mhm.
meet my expectations.
Yeah, so maybe you're visiting a bunch of different venues for who knows, a wedding, a party, and
Right.
if it was good, you could say this, it was up to par.
Yeah.
Or if it
when
was bad, it wasn't up to par.
yeah. When we were looking at wedding venues, we visited one that just wasn't quite up to. It was a modern venue, and it was in Denver, but it was in an industrial area of Denver. And industrial's cool now. It's where all the
Right?
breweries
It's
are.
in.
It's cool. It's in. It's hot, and it was a cute venue. It was a winery, a city winery,
Mm.
but in the end, we walked out of there and I saw like the smokestacks and could smell the pollution. I'm like, I'm not sure I want our guests smelling pollution as they walk out of our wedding. It just wasn't
Mm.
up to par,
That
Aubrey.
is
It's
not
just
up to par. I loved that. Everything Lindsay just said is a perfect part one answer. If you're asked about a time something didn't meet expectations, if you're asked about a party you attended, right? These are the details you should be sharing, what was good and bad about it. But with
Mhm.
today's phrases, why was it up to par or why was it not?
Love it. And then the next one I haven't heard very much, up to
Mm.
scratch. Tell us about that one, Aubrey.
Yeah, very similar. It means to be good enough to meet expectations. So synonymous with these others. You might say
Mhm.
the hotel room looked nice in the pictures, but it really wasn't up to scratch in person. So a little more
Mm.
slang, a little more informal, but it means the same as up to snuff.
Yeah. Okay. And so, all right. Any others? There's one more, which I
Yeah,
like. Fit the
one more
bill.
note I
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
share about up
yes.
to scratch.
Yeah.
Most of these can be used positively and negatively, but up
Mm.
to scratch, we really just use to say something isn't up to scratch, right? We
Okay.
wouldn't be
Good
like,
to
that
know.
venue was up
Was
to
up to
scratch because it's
scratch.
good. I haven't heard it used that way.
Okay.
So save that one for just saying something is bad if it's not up to scratch.
Yeah. When we go into the IELTS exam, we have to make sure we know the context in which to use these phrases, right? We've
Right.
tried them before, experimented with them in the negative and the positive in a lot of ways. Practice tests, right? Huge.
Exactly. Yeah. And then this last one, fit the bill, sounds just a little more formal. We might hear it more at work than these
Hmm.
others. Means to be exactly what is needed or exactly what is suitable for a purpose or an experience.
Nice. So, for example, I bought a small, fuel efficient car that fits the bill perfectly for my daily commute.
Yeah,
Yes.
it means
Yeah.
it's exactly what you needed. And of course, you could say that car is up to scratch, it's up to snuff, it's up to par. We can also
Hmm.
say it fits the bill.
Yes. Or we toured several universities and a lot of them did not fit the bill. They just didn't have what we were expecting. Not suitable. Right.
Right, exactly. It was not up to par. The nice thing about all of these is they are so synonymous, right? What
Hmm.
you were saying about that wedding venue, it didn't fit the bill. It wasn't up to scratch. It wasn't up to par. So you have four good phrases that you could pull any of them to avoid repetition and boost those vocab scores. Use these instead of good or bad.
Yeah. And the good thing about these, yeah, good and bad are just too common. They're way too
Exactly.
common to score high. Right.
Exactly. Anything that's super common, every student uses it, is going to be low
Mhm.
scoring. There are so many other ways to say this, especially with idiomatic language that is required to score 7 or higher.
Exactly. Okay, Aubrey, should we do a couple of examples? A few more examples today? Shall we go
Yeah,
into
so
it?
we are going
Yeah.
to do a couple of part 1 examples
Mhm.
for you guys. Lindsay, if you want to ask me one first,
Sure.
and then
Yes.
you can give me
Yes.
some
Okay.
feedback, I'll try to use today's at least one of
Okay.
today's expressions.
All right, here we go. So, Aubrey, did you have a favorite teacher in school?
Yes, in 5th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Darrington, was amazing. She was so fun. She taught with games a lot, which is right up my alley.
Mm.
And every teacher after that just wasn't up to par.
Mm. I like how you used at the end every teacher after that. So you make a clear comparison, right?
Yeah, this is another great way to use that, right? I didn't even need one of them to describe Mrs. Darrington as good or bad. I can
Mm-hmm.
also tack this on at the end to say everyone else wasn't up to snuff, wasn't up to par after this great teacher I had.
I love that. So good. It makes it clear. It gives you pronunciation opportunities for your pronunciation score, and it builds a clear picture in my head of all the teachers, right, that you had
Yes.
growing up. Hmm.
And this is even more flexible, right? If you, after you describe something else as good or bad with interesting vocabulary, compare it to everything else you've experienced, whether it's teachers, restaurants, parties, right?
Yes.
If you feel like
Yes.
you haven't shared enough detail, this is especially useful in part 2 where you have to speak for 2 minutes. Make comparisons, compare it to things from your past,
Hmm.
expectations, right? Those
Mm.
comparisons can add a lot of interesting detail.
Certainly a lot more interesting than saying good or better.
Exactly, right? It was good. It was alright. Alright,
Yeah.
Lindsay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's have
I'm
you
ready.
answer
Yeah.
a part 1 question here.
All right. Here we go. Mhm.
What do you normally do in the morning?
Oh my gosh, Aubrey, my mornings are active and they're also all about coffee. So I wake up early around 6:45, take my dog to walk, but then the thing I'm most excited about is getting my coffee going. And I'm very particular about my coffee brands. I love Pete's coffee. I like a nice dark roast. Once I tried another brand, like a more artisanal brand of medium roast, but it just wasn't up to scratch.
Nice. Great answer. I love that. Interesting details and vocabulary throughout the answer. And then this great idiomatic phrase to make a comparison here again to say that something else wasn't up to scratch when you tried something new.
It also it keeps you engaged in your answer in the speaking test because you're actually able to say what you think about things, which is more interesting for you, which will make your pronunciation better, don't you think, Aubrey?
Yes, awesome. You cannot just answer yes or no or like a very simple answer. We're
Yeah.
aiming for 3 to 5 sentences with these part one answers. That's going to be quite a bit of detail. And as long as you answer the question, you can then make comparisons, share, what it was like before, right? You can go off on
Mhm.
a tangent as long as you've answered the question.
I love it. There is going to be a part 2 of this series here, right, Aubrey? What should our listeners do to make sure they don't miss the next episode in this series?
Yes, be sure to follow the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to hit follow on IELTS Energy. We want to do a part 2 that has part 3 answers with this vocabulary because it's not just for informal part 1
Mhm.
answers. You can use this all over the speaking test to get that idiomatic language you need. Anytime you find yourself about to say something is good or bad, you want to instead use one of these phrases. And that also applies to the things you're asked about in part 3, these things that affect society at large.
Love it. Where should we leave our listeners? I mean, I think for me, the main takeaway is we want to replace those common words good, bad, right? They're boring for us. They're boring for the examiner. And literally, the examiner cannot give you that high score you want if you're using those words, right?
Exactly. These common words that every student knows are band 5, band 6. They cannot boost your vocabulary scores. So, and this comes up on every speaking test. You will definitely have to share if something's good or bad. You're being asked specific questions about preferences, about how much you appreciated something, liked something, what you would do differently. And you're
Yeah.
going to need to use good and bad, but you need higher scoring ways to say it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to IELTS, it's all about how we're spending our time in a smart way. And that's what we give you in our course, guys. In Three Keys IELTS, we give you the study plan to spend your time in an intelligent, strategic way, right, Aubrey? I mean, we can't study everything. We don't have years and years to prep for IELTS.
Exactly. You need strategies. You need how to know how to be spending the limited time that you have. So definitely, guys, check out our course at allearsenglish.com/keys, KEYS, for all of the strategies you need on every part of the exam.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you back here very soon, Aubrey. You have a good day.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.